So I have been planning to make this episode for a long time now. Hello beautiful people, Timmy is here with what else? An amazing episode in which I'm gonna answer two very important questions regarding this setup, exactly how you see it now on the screen. A setup which allows you to do things no other marches in Age of Empires Mobile would allow you to do. One could say is broken. So first of all, you see here the middle slot is open. Why? Because this is gonna be one of the questions which I'm gonna answer just in case, yes, you have Frederick, or you have Boudica, or if you have Ramcom. What are the cases in which indeed you're gonna see a performance difference? But please pay attention, and if you missed yesterday's episode, which I highly recommend you to go watch, these three heroes, Ramcom, Frederick, and Boudica, if you are working now on them, please stop and wait for the heroes coming with a new season, as I have a feeling they were gonna have a massive impact on this absolutely amazing or broken setup, however you wanna call it. And that's what I'm gonna answer in the second part of this episode, but by far the most important question is regarding this very handsome boy right here, Mr. Mansamusa, and the question is pretty simple. Which gems would be the best to be equipped on Mansamusa? And we are specifically gonna analyze, with the help of 80 battery ports, these specific gems. So 3 here with a healing, and you can equip another one in here because yeah, this hero is amazing and he heals and also does very solid damage. So a quick note regarding these gems. There are going to be a couple of players which are going to say, oh Timmy, these gems are kind of a little bit low, but I'm pretty sure for a lot of players out there, this level of these gems, it's high enough to do this test, because if there is a difference between using the healing gems or using exclusively only hero passive skill damage gems, then we will be able to see it. And in order for you to understand even better what exactly are these numbers, first I must show you how I have tested this. So obviously I went with this setup, so Cyrus, Boudica and Mansamusa, these two heroes remained the same. Also Mr. Mansamusa, with the exception of course of these 4 gems. So we're gonna have 40 battery ports in which I'm gonna have all 4 gems exclusively hero passive skill damage. And then I'm gonna show you another 40 battery ports in which we're gonna have exclusively these healing gems on Mansamusa. Or in other words, based on the level of these gems, you are looking at either 13.8 extra passive damage versus 11.5% extra healing. So how have I tested this? Sure, I used the supply bounty boss and done 10 attacks with one setup and 10 attacks with the other setup. But honestly, I actually done far more attacks because every now and then, every second, every third try, one of these marches was gonna run away or behave kind of strange, and I need precise numbers. And let's have a look at the one battle report in order for you to understand even better. Because when you hit this boss, these are actually 4 different marches which will gonna attack you at the same time. Now, let's go into the comparison to show you how have I made these numbers to speak to us. Because the important numbers are obviously the total damage coming from Cyrus, the total damage coming from Boudica, and the total damage coming from Mansamusa, to highlight not just only the overall march performance, but also the performance of each of these 3 heroes. But there's another number which will gonna play a massive role, and this is the battle duration. So in this case it's 21 seconds. So I'm gonna take these numbers, like 185k divided by 21, it's gonna give me the damage output per second coming from Cyrus. We're gonna do the same for Boudica, we're gonna do the same for Mansamusa. And of course, you guessed it, we're gonna take the healing of Mansamusa and divide it with the battle length in order for you to see also the healing per second. And yeah, obviously the overall damage per second coming from this setup, in which you're basically seeing Mansamusa with 13.8% extra passive damage versus the same setup, but in Mansamusa we're gonna have 11.5% more healing. And of course, this is just one match. Have a look at the second match because the numbers are different. So you see here, the battle was actually 30 seconds, and also these values are also different. Same goes for the healing. And that's why we're going to put now on the screen the 40 battle reports, in which we're going to see first Mansamusa having that extra 13.8 passive damage coming from those 4 gems. So let's have a look at the numbers. And of course, you're going to have time later on in the video to take a screenshot, and I'm going to put both 40 battle reports back to back for you to study the numbers. And again, what's super important here is the damage per second, because I consider this number to represent pretty much all the factors we have in Age of Empires combat system, or in other words, your damage reduction, your healing, when you heal, when did you activate your skills, and those values. So therefore, you actually see these 10 battery, they're also framed every 4 attacks representing 1 hit basically. And you see here the damage per second from Cyrus, here you see the damage per second from Boudica, and here you see the damage per second coming from Mansamusa, and you also see here the healing. So let's scroll all the way down. So here are the average numbers for each hero, representing the damage output in this configuration, in which, yes, Mansamusa has 13.8 extra passive damage coming from gems. And that also brings us to a total damage per second value of 12,017 points every single second. And also this number right here, 97.775. Yes, you are seeing 3 numbers behind the comma. Spoiler, we're gonna need them. Represents the amount of points which Mansamusa actually heals per second in this configuration. Good. Now let's jump to the other setup, in which we're gonna take this 4 gems with 13.8% extra passive damage, and we're gonna add those 4 gems, which gives Mansamusa an extra 11.5% healing. And here are the 40 battle reports. Again, you see them framed every 4 battle reports, representing basically 1 attack. You see also the title up there, minus 13.8% passive, plus 11.5 healing. Let's scroll all the way down in order to see the average match performance. So here we see the average damage per second coming from Cyrus, the average damage per second coming from Boudica, the average damage per second coming also from Mansamusa, and of course, the overall damage per second of the entire match. But not just that, well, this is the healing per second from Mansamusa when having that 11.5% extra healing. Now let's put these 40 battle reports back to back and draw the conclusion. So here we are, beautiful people. On the left side, you are seeing Mansamusa with passive gems. On the right side, you see Mansamusa with the extra 11.5% healing, not having the 13.8 passive damage. And we go straight all the way down to the numbers. So here you see the performance of Cyrus from 7,552 points, jumping to 7,698, slightly higher. When we have a look at Boudica's performance, she had 2,371 points. Here she has 2,354 points, a very, very small difference, which is only to be explained with a lot of RNG of this counterattack setup. And of course, it is to be expected that Mansamusa will gonna do slightly less damage, but how much? Well, you see him here with 2,039 points damage per second, and with extra passive damage coming from the 4 gems, he was at 2,933. So again, a very small difference, and so is also the overall match performance, because you see on the left side 12,017 points, you see on the other side 12,090 points damage per second. Of course, also the healing. So with that extra 11.5% healing coming from 4 gems, we jumped from 97.775 to 98.35, which is a very, very small jump. Now I have one good news and I have one bad news when it comes down to this data. And let's start with the bad news. If you want to have even more accurate numbers, you must test this with, I don't know, 100, 300, 400 attacks. Also take in consideration if you're using that boss of the supply depot, you're probably gonna end up doing far more attacks than what you planned. But the great news here is the difference is absolutely super small, meaning in other words, sure, you do have indeed to prioritize this pikeman setup, as no other March in Age of Empires Mobile allows you to do this crazy stuff. But when it comes down to the gems on the Mansamusa, healing or the extra passive damage, use whatever is higher and you're absolutely fine. And in my case, yes indeed, I can take the healing gems and use them on a different hero. But at the beginning of the episode, I promised you the answer to a different question, which is, does it make a difference when you're using Boudica versus when you're using Frederick, or basically in my case, yes, I'm using Ramcam a lot, and the answer is yes. Again, don't forget to not push on these three heroes, Ramcam, Frederick Barbarossa, and Boudica, till we get the new heroes in the new season, because we're gonna have Vlad, we're gonna have Otto, great heroes, which definitely will gonna have a certain impact when it comes down to this specific setup with Cyrus and Mansamusa. And let me show you something very interesting. Because yeah, yesterday we did have KVK, and yeah, I kind of went pretty crazy to get a lot of points, and we played versus the server 4. And while I have a ton of battery ports, I actually only tested a little bit, and that's together with Mata QS4 from server 4. And I would like to use this opportunity to give a massive shout out to Mata, but also to server 4, an absolute wonderful bunch of players. And let me show you something interesting. So you are looking now at one battery port. Yes, I know we need a lot more battery ports, but generally, from my experience playing with this setup for a very, very long time, here's a very realistic example in which, yes, I'm fighting the swordsman, but not just that, a very powerful setup with King Arthur, Tribuana, and Largeta. And basically, yeah, this is a very relevant number. 80,513 units Mata still had left alive when I died. And of course, if you are curious, we can have a look at the buffs. So you see basically the stats. Obviously, a fantastic hero, but also at the same time a very, very expensive one. And in a future episode, I'm going to present you a very strong alternative. And sure, you can see now the damage output, while of course being with this setup. Cyrus, Boudica, and Mansamusa. And let me now show you what happens when I put Ramcam, because definitely my Ramcam is far stronger than Frederick, and that's exactly what happened. So sure, I have more healings, you're gonna see in a second how much, but kind of the end results tells me everything. Because presumably, if you are facing opponents which in general are close to your strength, when you have one or two players against your Cyrus setup, sure, Boudica will perform slightly better. But in cases which you're gonna have more than 2-3 opponents on you, and also stronger opponents, yes, you're definitely gonna notice a big difference when you are using here Frederick, or in my case Ramcam, instead of Boudica. And let's have a look actually at the comparison, and the stats were gonna be slightly different because yeah, different values over here. And yeah, you can see here, yeah, sure, strong amount of heals, a battle around 38 seconds, but yeah, again, the number which is most important and tells everything is actually this number over here. So 101 units left on a 1 versus 1 with 2 healers, if you want to say so, but Ramcam actually gives you even more than that. And when we check here, this is the result with Boudica, which is obviously a little bit better. So beautiful people, that was it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and you know how life is. It's taking, but also at the same time giving. So if you consider not just only this video, but in general, the videos which you see on this channel do indeed give you a certain value, then it's time for you to give something back, which guess what, doesn't cost you any money. All you have to do is subscribe to this channel, obviously watch my videos till the end, share this channel with your friends, as these are free stuff which will motivate me the most to do even more videos, because there are a ton of topics regarding this wonderful game Age of Empires Mobile. Because yes indeed, you can enjoy this game when you can spend a lot of money, but you can also enjoy this game as a free-to-play players. as it's a teamwork game, and I'm gonna prepare a couple of episodes to show you what tools you actually have, what tips and tricks can a free-to-play player apply, not just only being extremely annoying to the opponent, but actually making a big difference. And again, those tips and tricks will not include you using war machines. There are a few more. So thank you very much for watching, and I'm gonna catch you in the next one. Ciao, 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 guys.